Perfect.
Good evening, everyone that's here in the audience today and online. Thank you very much for joining. Sherry, can you take a roll call, please?
Yes, ma'am. Mayor Miller,
I'm here.
Vice Mayor Lindauer,
Present.
Councilmember Bryan,
Here.
Councilmember Frizzlone,
Here.
Councilmember Place.
Here.
Thank you. Reverend Bob? I saw you. Thank you so much.
Before I pray, this is our last council meeting before Movie Mania, and I just want to remind everyone about that coming up the week of July 11th, 13th, and 15th at the Drive-In Church. And I want to take the opportunity once again to thank the city for your partnership on that event, and looking forward to 3 great movie nights.
We are too.
Yeah.
Great.
Wonderful.
Good. It's glad to be back. Well, we had it last year, but
We
stay
did
in the
have it
car.
Last year, but this year will be, every year it just gets better and better.
We're-
And this year we can even play a few games with the children and let down our guard just a little bit.
Are you going to announce, are you going to have food similar to what you had that first year, like the pizza and hot dogs, or still box?
We are having discussions about some of the hot foods that we served before, and think that we'll be able to do that again this year. And Ocean's Luxury Realty will be there at least one night, maybe 2 nights with ice cream, although they will fix the Sundays for us.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Please lead us in prayer.
Let's pray. Almighty God, we see your power in the strength of the thunderstorms, the thunder and the lightning and the wind. And we experience your grace as the gentle rain that waters the earth. May we in this time tonight see and be evidence of both power and grace in the deliberations that happen in this place, the discussions and the decisions that are made. We ask that you would, with your wisdom, guide these things and bring about helpful decisions for the betterment of the city and its people. We thank you in your holy name. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me tonight in the Pledge of Allegiance, and just stand here to tell you that we will be saying the Pledge of Allegiance at this city council meeting every single time. Thank you. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend Bob. Okay, tonight we do not have any presentations, but we do have is our Vice Mayor's birthday is today. Happy birthday, Mel.
Now I'll be eligible for Medicare.
Finally. But anyway, have a very happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Mel.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll move on to the approval of the minutes for the City Council minutes of June 8th, 2021. Do I hear a motion to accept those minutes as is?
I move we approve the minutes. Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on those minutes? Okay, if not, Sherry, can you take a roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Vice Mayor Lindauer,
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan,
Yes.
Councilmember Place,
Yes.
Councilmember Frizzlone.
Yes.
Mayor Miller.
Yes, thank you. Next on our consent agenda, we have 3 items. Do we have any comment on any of those items? If not, can I have a motion to accept those as is?
I'll move to accept as is.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on any of those consent items? If not, Sherry, can you take a roll on those, please?
Councilmember Place,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer,
Yes.
Councilmember Frizzlone,
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan,
Yes.
Mayor Miller.
Yes, thank you. Okay, next, the report of the city attorney, Attorney Boyce. It's so great to have you with us tonight. And we took the plexi down and we're almost back to normal, right?
I love it.
Oh, great.
Wonderful.
Can you read your report
Okay.
for us, please?
Yes, first there was ordinance review, reviewed and approved as to form and legal sufficiency ordinances relating to the comp plan and zoning. Code enforcement, we met with Community Services Director, building official staff, and code enforcement for a strategy session regarding how to move forward to improve certain properties in the city. Having to do with the 2021 legislative session, we completed a review of bills passed during the 2021 legislative session for presentation at the June 22nd, 2021 City Council meeting. And what we have done is we've included the Florida League of Cities legislative final report. There are some of these that may still be vetoed by the governor. Not all of them have been signed by the governor. But if, as you will notice, there is an extensive number of changes, and I think sadly, so many of them relate to losing some of our home rule powers, which is, to me, very sad. And anyway, and worked on the special exception for El Khari. We provided legal reviews for a special exception relating to off-site parking. With regard to the opioid litigation, we coordinated with the county attorney's office regarding the lawsuit having to do with opioid matters. We also drafted a resolution for approving an MOU to be joined by other county jurisdictions. We also rendered legal advice as to possible remedies of the city regarding problems spilling over into Daytona Beach shores having to do with a truck event that occurred in Daytona Beach at the Speedway. And we also provided legal advice as to certain interpretations of ordinances. So that is my presentation, and I'm open to any questions. I can't tell you that I have certainly memorized, I have not, the new legislation, but when you have time, you might want to go through it and look at it. And some of it is sad, some of it's okay, and that's about it.
Okay, when does the governor, what is his last date that he can sign a bill?
I think it is July 1st.
So it's coming quickly.
It is coming quickly.
He has 2 weeks for each bill when he gets to his desk.
I believe that's correct, and it's my understanding that, he still may veto some stuff. So we'll see. I don't have any specific.
Ricky, you touched on the truck meet.
Yes.
I was reading through the law, and I'm not a lawyer, so we're going to depend
Okay.
on you, but my interpretation is, the way I read it, it says the city can enforce the state laws on state highways, which would be A1A.
Yes.
However, it said that we can impose regulations on all the city streets, and they can be enforced by our police. So all of these complaints that we've been getting, a lot of them, most of them are on A1A. However, a lot of these people are on our streets. So what can we do to establish regulations, rules and regulations that pertain to our streets that our police can enforce, which might help eliminate some of the.
Okay. Well, if we start doing that, probably we will be shoving them over into A1A, would be my best guess. From a very practical standpoint, there are limited things you can do. You could temporarily lower speed limits if you wanted to do that, although it's my understanding some of these trucks had boom boxes, so probably the sooner they were through the city, the better. So that might not help. We wouldn't be able to shut down the streets. For one thing, that would be very problematic for anybody who lived here or anybody who was having family or friends over, or anyone who, for instance, had their home for sale. It would be difficult to, have restrictions on who can come in.
Well, my thought was primarily the noise.
Okay.
That's the number one complaint.
Okay.
And Vice Mayor, oh, I'm sorry, I'd not to interrupt you, but we have I've asked Captain Fowler to devote a lot of time, if you want to hold that question for
Okay.
him. So he's going to tell us a little bit about what happened, what his plans are for the future. So if you have any questions at that time, and then Becky, if you could weigh in at that time,
Absolutely.
like anything he's going to do. Okay.
Sure, be happy
Thank
to.
you. Any other questions for our attorney?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about opioid litigation a little bit. Has there been an allocation of dollar amounts?
There has not been. What has been decided, you're talking about the opioid
Yeah.
litigation, okay. The money will be used going forward rather than paying for expenses which you have already incurred, which I think a lot of cities were hoping that some of the money would be able to be spent that way. But the money is going to be allocated essentially going forward for education or other ways of dealing with opioid addictions.
Will it be allocated to, based
And
on
they'll-
what population or what?
Could be, it probably will be, and it'll probably go to the counties and be funneled through. The final decisions haven't been made on it yet.
And that was my understanding, that it would start either with the state or the county, and that would be passed on.
It would for sure start with the state, and then they would probably just go through the counties. And it may be based upon, when you say population, it may be based upon not actually the exact numbers, but it may be grouped into, the very large cities, the large cities, the medium-sized cities, and the smaller cities. But those things haven't been finalized yet.
Is there any particular deadline for finalizing this?
I think the Attorney General is, working forward to try to get something finalized on this, because it's a very complex thing, because it's not just the state of Florida, it's all throughout the country. And it is, they're working with the different, the bankruptcy aspects of it, and it's complex. But our Attorney General, from what I understand, is doing a good job of trying to get something so that money can flow.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for our attorney? Thank you very much, Becky. If not, we'll move on. Our city manager is not able to be with us tonight, so we have our assistant city manager, Kurt Worthlander. Kurt, could you please read the city manager report for us?
Yes, I can, absolutely. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight. On behalf of Mr. Booker, his report is the Halifax Health Express Care. On Wednesday, June 16th, the mayor, senior staff, and Mr. Booker met with representatives from Noon Health. Noon Health will be operating and staffing the healthcare side of the new walk-in clinic, and radiology associates will be handling the x-ray and imaging on the other part of the building. Hours of operations will be Monday to Thursday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., Friday, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m., Saturday and Sunday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. So they'll be open 7 days a week. The facility will officially be open July 1. And on behalf of Mr. Booker, if I could, I'd like to thank and acknowledge County Councilman, I almost said city, County Councilperson Billy Wheeler. If you would stand up so that
if you
I
could
think
come-
everybody knows you here.
Billy, I would even like you to come and just tell a little bit about how I know you've been in a meeting all day long, how you first brought, I think it was Kurt and Fred and I and Mike to that meeting, and,
I'm not sure, Kurt, were you
I wasn't
there?
in that meeting,
Yeah,
no.
I don't think so. This was like 3 years ago. Billy Wheeler, Volusia County Vice Chair and District 2 Representative, so I represent this entire area. It was about 3 years ago, and I happened to be at a Daytona chamber meeting, and the two hospitals were both there as well as everybody else. And I went up to both of them and I thought, I'm going to catch him. I was just new on the council. I want to go for it, So I approached Advent, which was Florida at that time. And they had just closed the one on Beachside, so they weren't interested at all. So I thought, I'm going in on Halifax. So I kind of cornered them and I said, hey, the Shores has been really needing this. This is one thing that the Shores has been asking for even when I was the commissioner. So I said, can we have a conversation? And they said, yeah, we'll think about it. Well, as the meeting went on, by the end of that meeting, they grabbed me and they said, we want to talk. And I thought, oh, I got you now. Yeah. So I was with them the next day, and then I called Nancy and I called Mike, and I said, what do you think? And they were jumping on. And then we had a meeting with all of the people who could make the decisions. That table was filled with the people who could say yes, and that's what we had to have. And then they had some proposals. The place where we were originally thinking about it didn't work, and Mike came up with the perfect alternative. So it was just the perfect way to see collaboration, working together to get this done for the citizens of the Shores. I couldn't be happier. I feel like a newborn mother of a child or something. Thank you all for participating and being so receptive and so eager to please what they were asking for, and I think it's going to be a great, great thing for all
We do
of
too,
us.
and thank you again
Yes,
from the bottom of our
absolutely.
hearts. We're
And there
so
will
excited.
there will be an article on the opening in tomorrow's News Journal.
Good.
Yeah.
And I'll be there Monday.
Great, great. And then July 10th will be an open house.
Yes.
So I want to announce that now because July 10th from 10 a.m. till noon. Thank you, Kurt, for letting me interrupt like that.
No problem. And I have one more item from Mr. Booker regarding Treasure Island. The city is actively pursuing the owners of Treasure Island, which is Acres Capital, to honor their agreement to maintain the structure in a safe manner. Currently, Acres has failed to keep their end of the agreement. There were reports and other work that was supposed to be done that they have not done. Thus, the property will be taken to the city magistrate to declare it an unsafe structure and to pursue a remedy. In the two cases that are open, the fines do continue to accrue. I know Mr. Hyatt and Mr. Cruz met with Attorney John Kerry, I believe it was last week, to discuss that process, so that is undergoing.
And I do want to assure you, I had a lot of people at Coffee with the Mayor that were asking about this, and we were fortunate enough that we had Director Hyatt come and talk to our audience and say, we are not letting them off the hook. I mean, any violation that comes along, we're actively pursuing that. We're doing whatever we can to say, we are not putting up with this structure for all of these years, whatever we legally can do. So thank you, Brett, for doing that, explaining it to the audience, and I think they appreciated it. Okay, next, do we have any, I'm going to go into a different subject. Do we have any questions for our city manager?
I had a couple of other quick items, if I could.
Sorry?
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm adding these from when Mr. Booker did his report. I spoke with Mr. Galbraith, the owner of 109 Dunlawton. They are hoping to get their CO by next week. And he said he has had a large amount of interest. He's had about 50 people contact him about going in there as a restaurant. He liked 5 or 6 of the ideas, but he is in serious discussions with one out of Orlando. But he would not give me a hint as to what type of restaurant it was. I tried, but he wouldn't budge on that. Also, an update on the FPL charging stations. They finally executed their side of the agreement last week, and so now they're going into permitting. They're hoping to be able to submit that in the next couple of weeks. So we're still probably a couple months away before that changeover happens. And then I'm going to embarrass Lori Irwin, my assistant, tonight. On Friday, she was nominated as president of our local Volusia Flagler Florida Government Finance Officers Association.
Congratulations.
And then, do we want to go ahead and?
Well, I want to see if there's any questions on anything you talked about before we did that. Okay, so now we're going to go into more or less the elephant in the room. Between all of us on council, if we added up the number of email, text messages, and phone calls we got on the truck event, I can't even imagine what that number is. I want everyone to know we hear you. We are residents of the shores. We feel your pain. I have a short video that I want to play, and then I think we'll hear from someone else. And I'm going to explain as much as I know about that. Last week, I was at the Daytona City Council. They played the same video. They are as upset as we are too. So what we need to do is get together and say, what do we need to do? So we're going to talk about that in detail tonight. So Angie, can you start that video for us, please?
Ma'am?
I had them take the sound out of this, so it's about a 3-minute video. So this is what happened in our beautiful city or in Daytona, but it could have happened anywhere.
Class. Such class. Oh, yes, yes.
Thank you, Angie. So we love our visitors and we love our tourists, but not when they disrespect our city like this. These are not the kind of special events that we want in Daytona or Daytona Beach shores. So Kurt, did you have someone that's going to talk about it?
Yes, Captain Fowler.
So Captain, how many hours did you have in that weekend?
I think between 2 days, I was here probably about 25 to 30 hours. But that included all of our people worked, even some more than that. So I wanted to tell you, I'm glad everybody got to see the video, because if you weren't out there, you don't understand just how bad it was. And when people called you or emailed you or texted you to complain, their complaints were legitimate. And unfortunately, if you were able to catch the landmarks in a lot of those, probably half of that video is Daytona Beach Shores. So the event attracted 50,000 people. I saw folks from as far away as California and New York that traveled for it. Excuse me. There was standstill traffic by early afternoon. And by standstill traffic, I mean it was not moving at all in the north end of our city. Traffic extended down to the 2700 block, which is past the Shores Resort and Spa, and it absolutely stood still. There's nothing we can do about that because we don't have anywhere to relieve that traffic. We are totally at the mercy of Daytona Beach. When they do a flush, that's when traffic starts to move again, so we totally have to wait for them. I at one point got into the traffic lane. It took 1 hour to get from one end of our city to the other end of our city. And you know how short a trip that is. Generally, our locals are able to use Peninsula. They know, go down on Peninsula. This was so big and affected so many people that Peninsula was also backed up, so that wasn't even a good artery for folks to get out on. I want to tell you that we had all available officers working. That included our detectives and included our administrators. They were out there day and night. We had 620 man hours. We had 23 of our officers, and then we brought officers in from other cities. The other cities that helped us out were Edgewater. They were here throughout. Port Orange, Ponce Inlet, and South Daytona. So a hearty thank you to them. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't thank Angie from our IT. She came in for us on Saturday night to keep us up and running. It was all hands on deck for us, which means every piece of equipment needed to be working, and when we had some failures, she came right out to help us, and that was a big deal. You should be very proud of our officers, of our public safety officers. I know I heard another chief talk about how he had to pump his people up and get them ready to go again. We didn't need to do that. Our folks were very enthusiastic, very positive. Even though we left them out there, like I say, some of them for up to 16 hours at a time. They were standing on foot patrol. It was so busy that we couldn't afford to pull them off the road to take breaks at some point, so we had to bring them food and drink to keep them on the road. The enforcement that we had was exceptional. I know that Daytona said they had over 300 officers. We had, like I said, our 23. I think they said they wrote over 900 tickets. We wrote over 600. So our officers were being strict but fair, but very strict when they could be. The majority of those tickets were for things such as riding on the exterior of vehicles, which is of course very dangerous, exterior speakers, which is enforceable. Loud music from a vehicle is not enforceable. It was found to be unconstitutional the way that the statute is written. And unfortunately, it looks like it affects our city ordinance for noise on a right-of-way or the roadway also. The way that the legislature wrote it, and I'm not an attorney, but I read the case law, was they exempted political and commercial speech from the statute, which then the Florida Supreme Court found to be unconstitutional to protect some speech, but not all speech. So that would be why you had that loud music going into 2, 3 in the morning, and our residents having to put up with their windows rattling at that time in the morning. We had open alcohol, seat belts, and then of course, as you saw in there, the burnouts, and if you didn't see them there, you can see them all up and down A1A and the other roads. We had 3 felonies during this event, and one was a hate crime, and another was a burglary in progress, not related to this, but of course that ties up resources. You know, luckily we were able to respond to that and make an arrest in that case, even though we were tied up there. We only had 2 misdemeanor arrests, and that seems ridiculously low. But the reason for that is if we make an arrest, that's taking one of those officers off the street. I already told you they don't have time to go in and eat. Now they have to drive out to the Volusia County Branch Jail. We've got an answer for that for future events, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. Also, we had 11 crashes during this event. I don't know why it wasn't on the video, but there's one that happens right in front of the Treasure Island that's a pretty good crash that if you've seen some of the other social media, it's on there. The other thing that we did is we put in traffic patterns during the day, what happens. And you probably, I know, Mayor, that I was forwarded an email that you were CC'd on. Some of our condos dump onto the beach ramps, and that's the way that folks get in and out of their condominium. Well, when we have people trying to make left turns southbound to get onto the beach ramps, and then people lining up to get onto the beach ramps going north, the people who are waiting to make a left turn get eager and they pull across the road. Number one, it stops all traffic northbound on A1A. But number two, then once they realize they're stuck out in the road, they come up the outbound lane and both lanes get plugged up. We've got an answer for that too. Generally, we don't police that. That's done by the beach safety, but we've got some answers, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. What we are going to do going forward is we have another event. You guys might want to put this into your calendar so you can travel. October 21st through the 24th is Trucktoberfest. Trucktoberfest is not the same event. You may remember it came last year. It is not nearly as large in the past as this truck event has been. However, we're going to gear up for it just like it is this event, because we know that there's a lot of people that come to both events, and we're going to set the tone in October for what's going to happen next year for this event. Here are some of the things that we're going to do. We've already canceled all days off and vacations for that event, so nobody will be able to put in for any time. Nobody can plan for any time. The director is already putting out a wider request for mutual aid from agencies. We'll reach out to the west side of the county, some of those agencies that aren't affected by this event, and we'll get their officers in here as well. We're going to look to state agencies to see if they will send officers to help us as well. We're going to enhance our public-private partnerships. We're going to reach out to some of the locations that had issues, Winn-Dixie, IHOP, Oceanside Inn. You saw the fights in the parking lot of Oceanside Inn, Harry's, to see if we can get them to hire off-duty officers. In the past, they've brought in FHP, or you can bring in wildlife officers to actually be on property so we don't have to tie up our resources, and hopefully it will help to mitigate some of the problems that they've had. Bicycle fencing, you've seen in the past. If you've seen it up in Daytona in the core area, and what it's meant to do is keep pedestrians from getting into the roadway. Once the traffic stops, people want to get out of their cars. They interact with people who are standing in front of the hotels, filling up the parking lots, and that obviously causes a safety concern. We're going to talk with the county about expediting the tolls. They seem to work at the same pace, whether there's 50 trucks lined up waiting to get onto the beach or it's a normal Friday afternoon. See if there's a way. I don't know that they'll be able to, but if they could expedite that, that would help us out with the traffic during the day. We're going to eliminate all left turns onto the beach so that hopefully folks won't be encouraged to take up both lanes. We've already talked to Director Flowers from the jail. They're going to give us a mobile booking station. So they will come out, and when we make these misdemeanor or felony, but the misdemeanor arrests that we passed over, they're going to go directly into a van and be processed in there so that we don't have to tie up our people driving out to the county. We believe that once they start to see folks going to jail, that might help curb some of this behavior. We're going to have a tow truck on standby. Every time we called for a tow truck, it was nearly an hour for them to get here, not by the fault of the tow company, but just due to the traffic. And we have a commitment from Mr. Hyatt. They're going to have their people here throughout the entire event who can put up these traffic patterns as needed and take them down and help us block off some of these parking lots where people fill. So that's all I have for you. I don't know if you have a question.
I have a couple of questions, so, or maybe comments, so maybe you can understand this a little bit more. Later on in the evening, I'm going to be asking for permission to be on a task force. So I think that will help as well, that we're going to come up, so it will be mayors and city managers from 8 different cities to say, how can we work together doing this? But a lot of emphasis has been on the speedway to, their permitting is not needed there, but to go to the speedway and just say, your business in Daytona, is this how you want to be known? Is this what you want to have there? And that may or may not work, but I want people to understand, regardless if it does work and it doesn't happen out there, if they come, there is nowhere to be during the day, and Daytona did open up Daytona 1 at night. So that helped a little bit. So they're a little busier in the day, having something to do, a little busier at night. If we would have an event like we had this past time, and social media is the one that's causing this. So if they get out there and blast it on social media, the people are still going to come. So I know Daytona Speedway should be taking a little bit of the blame for having this, but it's still not going to end it. Do you agree with that?
That would be my take completely. This event started as a spontaneous social media event about 5 years ago. And it was almost exclusively on the beach that year. They had gotten a permit for the beach. They were supposed to have a few vendors, and they had hundreds and hundreds of people show up. The complaints started to roll into us. Beach Patrol, or Volusia County Beach Safety, responded, but they requested us to come under mutual aid and help them because, again, it was spontaneous. I don't think that there's anything that's ever going to stop those types of events.
Okay. Well, on behalf of the council, before I let everybody else talk, and the residents of the Shores, thank you for everything you did. Each one of your public safety officers, Ed and I went out one night, just sat in Ace Hardware and watched it, and you had to be out there just to see what was going on and to be in the middle of that.
I'll forward that on to them, but I just can't tell you how tremendous our staff was for that.
Yeah.
Should really be proud of them.
Anyone else have anything else or any other questions?
I'd echo her comments on your department's conduct. Please pass it along to the officers. Tell them that we really appreciate everything they did. A couple of questions. Number one, that black smoke that they emitted, is that a violation, pollution, anything?
It is. Excessive smoke is a violation.
And
Yes.
you can cite that then?
Absolutely.
The second thing, is there anything we can do to help you, like have traffic regulations for our cities that you can enforce? For instance, everybody is not always on A1A. They're going on some of these other streets to get to A1A, to get off of A1A. Is there anything we can do, have a decibel level after a certain time or anything that you can enforce on our streets?
Well, unfortunately, the way that our ordinance is written, the decibel levels, there is a set decibel level there. However, it has to come through a sworn complaint, so presumably from a citizen, and then a warrant is issued the way that it's written. That's not something that we, can work with now. I think what the mayor alluded to, a task force, I've heard other people call it, if we could be consistent, at least throughout the beach side, if there are ordinances that are proposed, so that it's not different rules for us and then when you get into Daytona. Another thing that you mentioned is they're using these side streets, and that's affecting, it's mostly Daytona residents and county residents, because as soon as you get off A1A, a lot of these places are not our city. However, we could work with Public Works to block off those streets to local traffic only, and hopefully it would give them some relief.
Well, anything we can do, just let us know.
I appreciate it.
We certainly don't want to, we want to help the residents live in peace like they're supposed to.
Yes, sir.
I understand that when you mentioned Peninsula, I went on Peninsula because I had to go to CVS, so I thought I know the way to go. I went on Peninsula and I was backed up almost all the way to Oceans West, not quite, but it was quite backed up, and there were trucks on there. And one of the problems is that nobody could get through because they were on Dunlawton. They were going onto the bridge. They were backed up. So even when the light was green, they were in the middle of the intersection. People on Peninsula couldn't turn. So that would be a violation, wouldn't it?
It could be a violation, yeah, that's,
Again,
most of that's in Port Orange.
Is that a state?
You know, maybe an answer to that is that we get Port Orange to work the light, you know, we can control those manually, work the light at US 1 in Dunlawton, which is where that problem starts.
Dunlawton, a state road?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments for?
I have a comment. You know, first of all, Captain Fowler, it's amazing what you guys and the department does, and you've done special events, you've been here a long time. I've been here since the 70s, and, you know, I know when spring break got bad and the city of Daytona Beach shut that down. I remember when BCR got bad and the city of Daytona shut that down. So there is a way they can do it, but boy, you're anticipating, what you're doing is you're planning for the worst and you're hoping for the best, and that's probably the smartest thing to do. But there's only so many roads, and when you have that influx of people where all the entertainment is to cruise up and down, to show off my truck and see and be seen, there's not much you can do. And yeah, you can hold them back at bay, back at Dunlawton and US 1, but only for so long. So hopefully the chamber and the city and all the powers that be can get together in this task force and find a practical solution, because it does cast a bad image on the whole area. Whether it's Daytona, Ormond, and the shores, we all have that black eye. And it's not something that you want to promulgate throughout social media. You want families and you want nice tourists to come, people who are going to enjoy the, not someone who's going to throw their trash next to the trash can because they just couldn't be bothered, or to destroy the beach knowing that someone's going to have to bulldoze all that and clean it all up. Or it's horrific how a fellow human being would treat another human being's backyard. And those are not the kind of people that we want to cater to. And I don't know if the Hotel Association has a way of doing something, or maybe the chamber could step up and create another event where the hotels will already be booked and they have nowhere to stay. I don't know. Or you toughen up law enforcement and you make it, you know, a zero tolerance, and you have substations. I remember during Bike Week, I worked behind the Peabody. We had this portable tent, and people were being jailed there because we weren't schlepping them out to the branch jail. And we were doing first appearances there and issuing notices to appear. And here, you know, you come back in 30 days. So there's, you know, but again, I applaud you, because everything you've said is anticipating the worst but hoping for the best. And hopefully that task force that Mayor Miller is going to be on will address it, because it was, for the first time for me, I was a prisoner in my home. Now, thank goodness the freezer was full, you know, and the kids were home and everyone was safe, but I did not go anywhere. And I said, we're not going anywhere. Too bad. You've got plenty of things to entertain you. We just wait till Sunday afternoon. And thank goodness for the rain. Yeah. Otherwise, it would have been another day of you're already exhausted. And that's when it gets really tense, because everyone's tempers are flared and everyone's fuses are short. But we got through it.
Let me, if I may, let me ask a question to the council and to yourself. Why doesn't it happen in West Palm Beach?
He's the red.
That question I can't answer for you.
I can't. I
think you're.
I can too.
I think you're probably looking towards branding and the branding of the Daytona Beach area, and this is, you know, in my opinion, not the type of event that we want here.
It doesn't happen in West Palm Beach. It doesn't happen in Malibu, California. It doesn't happen in Carmel. The only way that it can be stopped, don't take this the wrong way, but I'm going to say it. I know you're being complimented. Writing 500 tickets isn't going to help anything. Put these people in handcuffs, put them in jail, and run them out of here. And there is no other way to stop it. The only way to stop this is through tough law enforcement, and we have not had that. We have not. Writing 600, these people are going to take those tickets and throw them away. They're going to pay you a $35 fine. It means nothing to them. They're going to laugh in your face, spit in your face, and that's the way it's going to be. The only way to take care of this, Captain, is tough law enforcement and having the chief cooperate and having the task force cooperate with people in Daytona and people in Port Orange and people in Ormond and people in Ponce Inlet and say, we're going to run these people out of here. Period, paragraph, end of story.
Well, like I said, we'll have a mobile jail, so if there's illegal activity that's observed at the future events, we're going to take action.
And I would coordinate across the board, but again, You know, if in fact, I mean, I have to ask the question, if in fact that the pollution, to Vice Mayor's point, is really enforceable, I can tell you that the Beach County Patrol on the beach could have arrested more people than Carter's got liver pills, because the beach was an absolute disgrace. And we're talking about A1A and Peninsula, but we left out the beach. So if you take people off A1A and you take people off Peninsula, guess where they're going to go? The beach. And they had donuts going on and smoke filled out, and you'd have a beach patrol person literally drive by and do nothing. Literally, nothing. So my advice to the task force, and I couldn't think of a better person on the planet than Mayor Miller to be on that task force and take a leadership role, is to take where you can. As a police officer, as someone who's in power, you need to, yourself and Chief Dubinsky and the other folks, look at where you can make a difference, right? You got to pick your spots. And that's a spot. If you've got that leeway, I mean, you can make hay all day, all night long, given what we all saw. And that's where you stick. You get people on a phone, you get the chief to be able to talk to his counterparts and say, this is where we're going to stick because we know this is going to happen. The task force is all over it, and you start taking these people and you lead them out of here in handcuffs. And you tell them you're no longer welcome here. And that's the only way to shut this down.
Well, like I said, we will have a mobile booking facility here, which expedites things dramatically. It wasn't prudent to take somebody off the road for 4 hours for a minor offense because, you know, we found even just trying to clear out parking lots. We'd clear out parking lots, and most people complied when we asked them to leave. And they'd come back 5 minutes later, and it's 50 different people in the parking lots. That's how overwhelming.
And you were right. And you were right from the beginning, though. When you start locking people up and you start taking them in handcuffs and you start having them have to post bail, you watch see how quickly things straighten up.
And you tow their vehicles.
You better believe it. That you
That
have
sends a message.
It's all we got. So you have to pick your spot. You know, somebody drinking too much, or there was some loud music. I mean, leave it alone. You can't enforce it. But where you can enforce it, get these people out of here and make their lives miserable. Make their lives so that they all look at each other and say, we have no part of this because we're just, I don't want to go to jail. That's it.
Mike, can I ask you another question?
Yes, sir.
Excuse me. These people most of them out of town. They're going to throw those tickets away. They're not going to pay the ticket. Does that make them a fugitive in any way, where when you get them back next year, you got a big long list of all the people that didn't pay their tickets?
So the way that works, there's no such thing in Florida as a $35 ticket anymore. Boy, they'd love to see those. Yeah. They start at about 116 and go dramatically up from there. If you don't pay a citation in the state of Florida, their license is suspended for failure to pay a citation. That subjects them to future arrest and the towing of their vehicle.
Is that only Florida residents or all these?
No, that's all of them. In fact, if you don't have a Florida license, they generate a Florida number for you as soon as you get a citation, and they will suspend your privilege to drive in Florida. So if they're back here, they have a suspended Florida, and a lot of the states have reciprocity, so they'll suspend them in their state also.
Well, that would give us a list then of people that we could look for next year to lock up, get them out of the car and tow their car then, right?
So I think what we're saying is there's not one little thing that's going to work. There's going to be a whole lot of things that we're going to have to come up with, united with all of these cities together, and that's what I'm planning on doing. One other thing I wanted to go over, I know Kurt doesn't have the final numbers, but Kurt, the last time I was asking you, did you think that it was almost $11,000 that we paid?
Yeah, we haven't processed payroll yet, so we don't have a final number, but it,
So for a small city like Daytona Beach Shores, $11,000
In overtime?
yes.
in overtime.
Yeah, and for the numbers, so you have a better idea of the hours worked, Captain Fowler and I talked about this. They had 620 hours worked. About 314 of that was overtime. So basically, we were double staffing the whole weekend. And that doesn't include the folks, we have a few folks that are salaried that worked extended hours as well, but they just get their regular salary.
Correct.
Yeah, we know some of those. All right, well, we thank you very much. Billy, is there anything you want to add?
If you don't mind, please.
Because Billy had a county council meeting today, and that came up there, so.
So, first of all, Mike, I don't even know how to say, you are the example. The Shores always does it better, that's all I can say. I brought this very same thing to the county council right before I was here in my 8-hour meeting. But I will tell you, that weekend, I was blasted because I have all of Beachside as my district. And I was even hearing from Port Orange and South Daytona and everything else. It was a nightmare. So I was calling their manager, their staff, their council and everything else, and I was just giving them a what for my staff. It was what it was. You know, it was an absolute nightmare. Monday morning, I had a meeting with their new manager. And it was my first meeting with him, and I said, sit down, we're gonna have a long conversation. And we did. It was about an hour and a half. And in the meantime, I had been talking with Stacy Cantu, their new Bulldog council member on Daytona. And we had talked all weekend long. She was sharing videos, I was sharing videos. And she said, you know, she was talking to a friend and they brought up the task force, and we both said that's something that we need to consider. So between the two of us, we have 8 cities now. So I got Ormond Beach, we've got Holly Hill, we have South Daytona, we have Port Orange, I've got New Smyrna, Ponce Inlet, hopefully the Shores will be a part of it, Daytona, and I will be with the county, and the county will be at the table. I think it's important that we do have officers there because you can tell us your side, and the whole task force is for nothing other than for us to help you. What do you need to get this done? You know, if it means our getting ordinances or strengthening our ordinances, but this is to help them. And these events, in my conversation with my council, I said, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done with all the excuses. And quite honestly, Daytona carries the train. I mean, they're running the ship. They have the events, and they've not really been willing to really let us know what all is going on. As their commissioner, county commissioner, I don't know. You know, that's a bad thing when I have to be, I'm calling around to their chief, trying to find out what the heck's going on. So I've made that really clear to Daytona. What happens to you happens to all of the surrounding cities. You take them out of your city, and where do they go? They go to all these other cities, which I represent. And I happen to live in the Shores, and I don't like it. And I'm done with it, and I think we just have to have this unified force, this task force. And the county has already offered our public safety building, so we'll have a big meeting there with managers, mayors, or representatives from those 8 cities, as well as the county, and police officers, or whatever else needs to be there. But how do we move this forward? Because it's not just the truck event. So everybody needs to understand that. We can't single them out. This is events. So love events, don't mind the events, that's what we are. We're a tourist area, welcome the events, but daggum, like I've fought for 5 years when they first came. You know, when you're here, go by our laws, and please be respectful of the people's territory. And the fact that we have to go through what we have to do on these events because of social media, it's not gonna, we're just not doing it anymore. So we're gonna come together to help you guys. You guys, I bragged about you at the county council meeting. I said, my Shores, here's what they did. How many traffic tickets? I was so proud of y'all. You just said, not in my city. And you know, life is better here. But I can tell you, the county's gonna be at the table. What happened at the beach, and you saw it all. We just didn't have enough people down there, and I was calling our beach safety, and I said, do you need more people? And everybody seemed to think they had it under control. But there was no way they could be everywhere with what was going on. So like you said, once they're over here taking care of this, they got a fire over here. It's just too daggone much. I don't care if they have to stop them at 95 before they even get onto these major roads. Somehow we're going to find a solution, but it's going to take everybody's input. And what you're doing, Mike, some of the things you've come up with, I think are absolutely superb. Well, let me ask you one thing. When you're giving citations, is there a set fee?
Yeah, the fees are preset.
By the state or by?
By the state.
I wonder if we could have a
Surcharge.
a tourist event fee or
Surcharge.
something like that, and just zap it.
Everything's gonna be
I would-
wide open.
You know,
I would
know
just
we
say-
can't- I know, Mike, you're sitting there shaking your head, oh dear God, don't go there. But, you know. I
Great
mean-
idea, though. I like
Yeah,
it.
I love it, you know.
But Billy, I would just say, you know, we were all kids once, right? All of us. Every one of us did crazy things and did dumb things. We all did. And, you know, I mean, we're all culpable, we were all in college, whatever it was, and we all look back and say, geez, how did I even make it?
How'd I live
Right?
it?
How did I do it, right? We all do, right?
I did
So-
too.
Speak
so-
for yourself,
well,
I
I
was a
did,
good
I
boy.
did.
I did
Well,
too.
I'll speak for myself. So the one thing that nobody wanted, nobody, take a ticket, you can get yelled at, you can get chased out. Nobody wants to get arrested, and nobody wants to get their tow cars. Nobody wants to get their car towed and having to go get it the next day, and no one wants to get let off in handcuffs.
Couldn't agree
Those are the
more.
two things that we have to focus on.
So I talked to Ben Johnson a little bit about history, and I talked to a few Daytona police officers that have been around, that have historically been around, and they said, set up those temporary jails. You'll watch, do a couple events like that where you're just,
And take Reverend Bob's place
And
and
the
turn
car-
it into
and
a,
the truck.
and put the trucks, and put the trucks there.
Yeah, 80,000
And
truck.
just pound them, just
it's
impound
going to
them.
be impounded for the weekend.
There you
So
go.
So
Go to jail, go to
I just
confession.
want you to know that the county is at the table, my staff is supportive, my council is supportive. I will be on the task
Oh, yeah, I'm
force.
not putting up.
And Nancy and I are going to kick butt and take names, so thank you.
Thank you, Billy.
All right.
Okay. Any other comments or questions about that? I think we've covered it pretty well. Just to know, we hear you. We're Daytona Beach Shores residents too. We feel your pain, and we are going to do something about it. Okay, I think we'll move right along now to old business, and this is ordinance. Oh, I'm sorry.
Do it like a beach cleanup event.
Oh, Matt, can you come up here to, Matthew, can you come up and, yeah. Yeah, when you come up, could you just say your name and address for the record?
My name is Matt Riley. I live at 129 Dundee Road. Why don't we just do an event at the same time? And I know we can't shut down A1A, but what if we shut down the beach to residents to clean the beach for those 3 days?
That's something we will certainly.
Or like some kind of event or something like that to where they wouldn't be allowed on the beach. 'Cause we're doing
Okay,
something else.
so it would be shut down. And we have to look into that legally too. Some people just said shut it down. What we don't want is everything going from the beach to A1A, doubling that,
Right,
so.
and not shutting it down for the truck event, but shutting it down to clean it up.
The beach.
Clean the beach.
Okay. I've taken down that idea. I'm open to anything.
Think outside the box, man.
Yeah. And that's what we will do. Okay, so thank you very much for your cooperation during that and listening to that. I thought it was very important. So old business is ordinance 2021-03, a second reading. Attorney Boyce, can you read that ordinance for us,
Yes,
please?
this is ordinance number 2021-03, an ordinance of the City of Daytona Beach Shores, Volusia County, Florida, relating to voluntary annexation of real property located at 2924 South Peninsula Drive, short parcel identification number 5327-09-00-0200, together with associated rights-of-way in accordance with Section 171.044 Florida statutes, providing for legislative and administrative findings, redefining the boundaries of the city, providing for legal effect in implementing administrative actions, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for non-codification, and setting an effective date.
Thank you, Becky. So this is a second reading, and we had Ms. Smith here last week, and she eloquently told us why she wants to be in the shores, and I think we voted at that time to approve the annexation. So this is just the second reading of this. So do I have any public comment? Anyone that wants to speak about this? Okay, if not, do I have a motion?
Yeah, I move we pass on second reading 2021-03.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion at all? Okay, if not, Sherry, can you take a vote, please?
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Bryan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer?
Yes.
Councilmember Pilatus?
Yes.
Councilmember Frizell?
Yes.
Mayor Miller.
Yes, thank you. Okay, now we're going to move on to new business, and Stuart Cruz will come up and explain what these are. These are just formalities. When someone is coming from the county into the city, there's certain formalities that we have to go through. So new business A and B, but they will be two separate. If you want to explain those to us, and then I'll have Becky read it. Or do you want to read first?
Yes, I'll go ahead and read it.
Okay, if you could read, please, thank you.
This is ordinance number 2021-04 on first reading, an ordinance of the City of Daytona Beach Shores, Volusia County, Florida, relating to comprehensive planning, amending the City of Daytona Beach Shores Comprehensive Plan, amending Chapter 1, Future Land Use Element by amending Map L4 entitled Generalized Future Land Use Map 2030, assigning the residential low-intensity future land use designation to annex single-family residential property generally located at 2924 South Peninsula Drive, short tax parcel ID 5327-09-00-0200, providing for implementing actions, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for non-codification, and providing an effective date.
Thank you, Attorney Boyce. Stuart, so can you explain what we're doing here, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I just have a short presentation, if you'll indulge me, the council will indulge me. So basically, as you mentioned, Madam Mayor, this is just a procedural item that we typically do whenever a property annexes from the county into any city here in the state of Florida because of Chapter 171.062 of the Florida statute, which basically says if we want to implement our laws on a specific property, we essentially have to assign a future land use map classification to that property, and we also have to add a zoning designation to that property. So essentially right now, this property has county zoning and it has a county future land use map classification. The future land use map classification is more of an overarching land use entitlement, whereas the zoning is more specific. So if those exist for a specific property that's annexing into a city, that city essentially has to assign its own version of that comprehensive plan future land use map classification and also the zoning as well. And so if that's the case, then what we'd be able to do is we'd be able to go ahead and enforce our land development regulations on that property. So this is just a quick background. Everyone knows the property is at 2924 South Peninsula. Essentially, if you look at the bottom, the current entitlement is for a single-family house. If this ordinance is adopted, they will keep their single-family house there. They wouldn't be able to build a condo or put a commercial establishment on the property. In terms of impacts, there's no change in the impacts from county to city when we make this amendment. This is the location of the property just across from the Cloverleaf North on the west side of South Peninsula Drive. That's an aerial view of the property. And this is basically what we're doing. In our comprehensive plan, which is our land use constitution for the city, we have to assign a color that has a designation for this property. And right now, because it's in the county, you'll see that there's no color assigned to it. So we essentially have to add a color to it. All the colors that you see, all the properties with colors that you see on this map, essentially are in Daytona Beach Shores, and they have a land use designation and a zoning designation. And so all we're going to do is essentially add that color right there that you see, which represents low-density residential future land use classification. The Planning and Zoning Board did see this ordinance, Madam Mayor, council members, and they did recommend approval on the 14th of this month, and staff is recommending approval. If there's any questions for me, I'll be happy to take those.
Is this comp plan amendment something we have to go through for every annexation?
For every annexation, correct. Or else the city wouldn't be able to apply our land development regulations to that property. They'd stick with the county rules, essentially.
Do I hear anyone from the audience that has any questions? If not, do I hear a motion to accept this ordinance?
I move we accept the ordinance.
Second it.
Okay. Any other discussion? If not, Sherry, can you take a roll, please?
Councilmember Bryan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer?
Yes.
Councilmember Politis?
Yes.
Councilmember Frislow?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes, thank you. And the second new business B is in line with that, another formality. We'll have Becky read it for us first, and then you can explain. Sorry.
This is ordinance number 2021-05, an ordinance of the City of Daytona Beach Shores, Volusia County, Florida, assigning the RSF-2 urban single-family residential detached district zoning classification to annex single-family residential property generally located at 2924 South Peninsula Drive, short tax parcel ID number 5327-09-00-0200, providing modification of the official zoning map, providing for implementing administrative action, providing for non-codification, providing for an effective date. Thank you.
And Stuart, so the second part of this is,
Yes, they always come in twos.
okay.
So the future land use is what ordinance 2021-04 that you just approved covered, and this one is the rezoning or rezoning designation assignment. And essentially what we're doing is we're now assigning the city zoning classification, which is RSF-2, which is our urban single-family residential detached district. And again, just like with the future land use map, the zoning map, we're assigning a color, and you can see there it's kind of a yellow-looking color. It's RSF-2, which is our urban single-family residential district. There's no change again because it's going to be single-family to single-family. And again, the Planning and Zoning Board did hear this item and recommend approval unanimously, and planning staff is also recommending approval.
Stuart, does this mean now that, that they are in the shores, that either property on either side of them could automatically be annexed to the
They would
shores?
have to make an
Application.
annexation application to the city unless we go through the whole interlocal agreement enclave reduction thing.
Okay, all right, okay. And this is on Peninsula, but it backs up to, is it River Point?
No, actually, the property to the west of it backs up to River Point.
Oh, it does, okay, all right. So any of
But
those?
its neighbor to the south actually backs up to River Point, and it has frontage on South Peninsula as well.
Okay, and is that in the shores?
No, the properties to the north and the south and the west are not in the shores, but the property to the east, which is the Cloverleaf subdivision, and basically the
The reason that they got- yeah.
they're in the shores, and that's how it gained contiguity. For a property to annex into a local government jurisdiction, it has to physically abut, and roads are included in terms of qualifying for abutment.
Okay.
Will this letter that we received from the owner go into the record, Sherry?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because it does state, she states in her letter that there are other people, neighbors of hers, that do want to annex into the city, which is.
Yes,
get
I've
rid of
had
that.
quite a few calls from, not necessarily the neighbor to the north and south or west, but people in that general vicinity who want to annex into the shores.
It's great. I mean, it's phenomenal.
And that's part of the enclave that we're going to be working on anyway, so it'd be so nice if they. It was done, yeah, we started to work on it, it was done.
It's a natural process for practice to annex into the shores, whether it's voluntarily or through the local agreement with the county.
Who wishes their
Yeah,
committee?
good work, good work. Way to
Yeah.
go.
Any comment on this evening?
Yeah, I have a
terrific.
question. This went to the county, right? This-
So
And they basically say no comment? Or they approve, or-
So the annexation notice was sent to the county under Florida statutes 171. We're required to provide at least 10 days notice, and we have not received any comment. And typically, before a voluntary annexation application is even submitted to the city, I typically reach out to the city, because these people contact me before they even submit an application for me to walk them through the process. I typically reach out to the county planning staff to ensure that there's not going to be any issues in terms of them annexing into the shores, and they did not object to it. But they did suggest that, exactly what the mayor is suggesting, that all those other properties in that enclave annex into the shores at some point in time.
County went?
County planning staff did, yes.
Yes. And that's something we're going to actively be pursuing.
That's my understanding, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to accept 2021-05?
I'll move to accept.
Thank you. Motion second?
Second.
Thank you. If no further discussion, Sherry, can you take a roll, please?
Councilmember Politis?
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan?
Yes.
Councilmember Frislow?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes, thank you. Okay, next we'll move on to Resolution 2021-04 for the city to join as a participant in a unified plan regarding the opioid epidemic. So Becky, do you have something on this, or do?
Well, I need to read the title.
Okay.
To it. This is Resolution 2021, a resolution of the City of Daytona Beach Shores, Volusia County, Florida, to join with the state of Florida and other local governmental units as a participant in the Florida Memorandum of Understanding and Formal Agreements implementing a unified plan regarding the opioid epidemic and providing for an effective date. And this resolution is going to be sent to the Attorney General, and the Attorney General this is our agreement to participate. in this, and the county, Volusia County had asked that all the cities adopt this in different counties. Our law firm represents different cities and different counties, and basically the cities all around the state are passing things that are similar to this. And this does provide that eventually, we are all hoping that we will finally get funds from this, and it may or may not actually filter down to the cities. The effects of it will definitely, help the cities, because they're going to be, from what I understand, the money is going to be used for educational purposes. It may be administered through the county, but it will affect all the cities. And hopefully this will assist the Attorney General to be able to negotiate with all the different pharmaceutical companies and the different states, because they're having to divide up the money that they're able to get from the pharmaceutical companies to the different states, and then from there to the counties, and from the counties to the cities, or at least the effects to the cities.
Okay.
So that's what this is.
Okay, thank you. Any questions on this?
Well, in reading through it, Becky, I don't think that we should expect a lot of money on this. We are down at the bottom of the totem pole at the city level, plus the size of the city. So I think that anything we get will be a bonus, but I don't think we should be expecting a large sum.
So this is just more a show of unity with the county?
Yes, and I agree with you completely, and also, the city of Daytona Beach Shores, just like virtually all the other cities in the state, it's not part of your mission to create a department that would educate about opioid addiction, that sort of thing.
And that's how the money was supposed to be used, right?
Yes, I mean, that's how it will be used. So that type of money might be best used by the state or by the counties for, different, there might be, new programs that might go in force throughout the state, or, some specifically to Volusia County. But, I don't know how much of a specific problem there is in Daytona Beach Shores directed to the people who live here, as opposed to maybe visitors here. I know a lot of the tourist areas, a lot of the problems with the opioid issue have to do with tourists who come down here and overdose and that sort of thing.
Would the antibody, or whatever you call it, the shots that they give to overcome that, would that qualify for our department?
I know that there was some desire to be able to recover all the money that had been spent in the past, but that doesn't look like that's going to happen. But that may very well be part of the money that, because our public safety officers, have to have those, and those are not cheap. So.
Hopefully that would qualify, because we
Hopefully.
probably are not going to be setting up one of those formal programs.
Right.
Do we have any audience comment on this? Okay, if not, do I hear a motion to accept this resolution?
I move we accept Resolution 2021-04.
Second.
Thank you. No other discussion? Sharon, can you take the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Lindauer,
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan,
Yes.
Councilmember Pelias,
Yes.
Councilmember Frislow,
Yes.
Mayor Miller.
Yes, thank you. Okay, can I ask our Assistant City Manager to switch his hat now and become the Finance Director? And could you go down?
Yes, I'm going to go down
All right.
as Finance Director of it.
Okay, take the hat off and put the new one on, and our Finance Director will be explaining about the Audit Committee to us.
Yes, I'm actually going to discuss the next
Two.
two items as one. So the first item is the Auditor Selection Committee. So if you remember last month, we received our audit report from CRI. That was the last report of their contract. So now we're out of contract and no longer have an auditor of record. So under state law, we have to create an auditor selection committee. So in a minute, I will ask the attorney to read Resolution 2021, and there's no number on it, but it's 05. Page 126 of your packet. But back in 2019, this came up, and council gave staff direction to create an auditor selection committee of 1 council member and 2 citizens. And tonight, I'm going to ask you to do something a little bit different, and I'm asking for the council to appoint themselves as that committee. And the reason for that is, if you have your packet in front of you, I'd like you to look at page 145. And it would be this. So the purpose of the auditor selection committee is to select an auditor. And so under state law, the audit committee approves the RFP for issuance, which is the next agenda item. So if you appoint yourself, I'll ask you to approve that as the next item. And then really, staff handles questions related to the RFP. And then we set a deadline for submittals from audit firms of July 30th. And when we issued the agenda item, we said 2 o'clock. And then when I was prepping ads with Sherry to go in the newspaper, we realized we have another RFP opening at 2 o'clock, so this will be 3 o'clock. After that, staff would receive those and hand them out to the auditor selection committee. And typically, we would get 7 to 10 responses. The ones I've done in another city, we got 7 to 10 responses. And the committee reviews those and selects 3 or more if they want to do. I would suggest 3 to come in and give presentations to the committee or the council. And then the committee makes a recommendation at the end of the day to the council to select one of those 3. So if you did a separate auditor selection committee, as was recommended before, of 1 council member and 2 citizens, they're basically going to do step 1, because I'm assuming that because the city council hires the audit firm, you're going to want to see the presentations, not the audit committee. So the only thing the audit committee would be doing would be approving the RFP, which staff has prepared one already in advance. I can't serve on the committee under state law, but I can be an advisor. So in my advisory capacity, with Lori's help, we prepared one for tonight. So the only thing that that committee would be doing then would be reviewing those 7 to 10 submittals and then giving them to you for the presentation. So I'd like to, rather than having separate meetings, and because they all have to be under the sunshine, instead of having a separate committee, separate meetings for that simple purpose, I'm asking the council to assume that role and review those 7 to 10, come back at a future meeting, rank them. In my experience, it's been easiest just to rank them 1 to 10. And what I've found is that usually the council, one member might say, well, this is my number 1, but this member says, oh, it's my number 3. And you say, oh, well, that's my number 2. And the average ends up being that the top 3 are usually the top 3, maybe not in that same order for everybody, but you end up picking the same top 3 anyways. So it's really not a complicated process.
And then they would come in and do a presentation similar to when we chose a new attorney firm.
Correct. Yeah, very similar process. So that's what I'm asking. Rather than having that separate committee that council at one time recommended, I'm asking it just to be actual city council.
Do we need a consensus, or do we?
You actually have to adopt the resolution. So if you're ready for that, I'll have to ask the attorney to read that into the record and then get a motion, et cetera.
This is Resolution 2021-03.
05.
05, okay. Let's call it a resolution of the City Council of the City of Daytona Beach Shores, Florida, creating a City of Daytona Beach Shores Auditor Selection Committee to implement controlling state law, providing for legislative findings and intent creation, providing for membership in the committee's purpose, membership, duties, responsibilities, and meetings, providing for a savings provision, providing for implementing actions, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Becky. So is there any audience comment on this? I'm going to ask for audience comment on this one and the next one because they're tied together. If not, do I hear a motion to
I move we
accept?
accept the resolution.
I'll second.
Any questions or discussion? If not, Sherry, can you take a roll, please?
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Bryan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer?
Yes.
Councilmember Platus?
Yes.
Councilmember Frislow?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and now, I'm going to look at the attorney to make sure I do this correctly. As I just switched hats from Assistant City Manager to Finance Director, I have to ask you now to switch hats from council member to
Committee.
Auditor Selection Committee member, and you're going to meet now to discuss the RFP as the Auditor Selection Committee.
I have a question. Does
Yes, sir.
state law specify the term of the contract?
No.
So it could be 1 year or 5 years or 10 years?
Yes. And so what we put in the RFP,
What page is the RFP on? Begin on.
let's see where it's,
137.
It says that
yeah, it starts on 137. Really, that's the cover sheet, and then
It starts on 138, okay.
goes to,
this is just
138.
creating the selection committee.
So that's one thing we did, as a committee, determine.
Correct. Now, what I put in the RFP, and that's, will be issued in the RFP, and I'm trying to turn, I don't remember which page that's on, the RFP.
Was there a question I didn't hear? I'm sorry.
The terms of the contract.
The term, the length of the contract, and I guess the terms are either,
Well, I mean, Richard, I read the entire law, and it does say that in addition to the existing contract, that the contract can be renewed. So if whatever term you make it for, if you make it for a year, and the committee or the council votes, they can vote to renew it for an additional year.
The RFP reads 5 years with 2 3-year extensions. Now, you can change that, council can do whatever you choose to do. Usually, there's a set term with, it can be 1-year extensions, one at a time. You could do 2 5-year terms. I mean, it's purely up to council what you choose to do with that. I put in 5 years as an initial.
If for some reason we're not happy with them in year 3,
Yeah, you can exit the contract at any point in time.
and both sides can if.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
all right,
So just because you say it's a 5-year term, there, you can get out of that.
okay.
Does that answer your question?
yeah, are we discussing the RFP now?
Yes.
Did we adjourn and?
Oh, do they need to formally adjourn? Okay.
Yes, you need to adjourn the city council meeting.
Okay.
And commence the,
Adjourn or recess? The council meeting.
Adjourn or recess?
recess. Yes, because we're coming back, yes, recess it.
We're going to recess the city council meeting.
And begin the, what did you call it?
Auditor Selection Committee.
And now we will begin the auditor selection committee. Thank you for the assistance.
Yeah, I'd like to pick up on Mel's, wasn't necessarily a suggestion, but I think having it for a year and extending it year by year gives you the best, it notifies them, that's what our intent is.
Yeah, I'm not looking for, 3 would be the minimum that I would want to go, since we have the out. So we would have to go through this every year.
I would have to bring it back to you as an item every single year if you're doing it as a 1-year contract.
Okay.
But we do have a solid out without any legal ramifications or possible lawsuits or anything else?
Yes.
Okay, and,
The contract will have that.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay.
and I
And
don't,
usually, they don't do a contract, it's usually a letter of engagement, is what the auditors call it. I know.
I know it is,
We'll have to
it
talk.
amounts to a contract.
Yes, it does.
and Kurt, from your past experiences in other cities, did you do a 3-year, 5-year? What is typical?
I've done 3-year and 5-year, but
And be-
I would agree, I would like at least a minimum of 3-year, rather than having to do that every year, because we have to, as staff, we start actually prepping mid-year for the audit, and they do on-site work well before the fiscal year is over. So if we have a multi-year, it just works, it's simpler.
Okay, so I'd like to have a discussion on that. I would like to take your recommendation of 5 years, but I could live with 3. So Councilman Politis,
I'm good with 5. If you can get out, whether it's 5, 3, 4, you know, just leave it at 5, it'll be fine.
Councilman Frizzlin?
3 to 5.
I'll stick with the 5 unless I have a compelling reason for 3. Vice Mayor?
I'm fine with that as long as we can get out of it without any repercussions or without having to go to court or anything like that, that cost to the city.
Councilman Breyer, are you okay with that?
I'm fine with that.
Okay. Any other questions on the RFP?
Now, I would just like to go back to that, the one page, page 145 that has the schedule, to make sure that you're all going to be here on those days. So it's our regular scheduled meetings. So the 10th, we could, if we can, do a short workshop at 5 for the Auditor Selection Committee to go through their rankings. And then on the 24th is when you would have the oral presentations by the 3. So I'm going to suggest 4 o'clock. I think that's worked well in the past for other things. What we've typically done in the past is you tell them a 10 to 15 minute presentation, and then that allows, say, another 15 minutes for questions from this body to see what they really want to know about each firm. One thing I do want to point out is that there is a no contact clause in this so that the firms can't discuss the proposal with the committee or the council. So I've had experience in the past where one firm in particular likes to go political, and they'll try and wine and dine you. And so I put that in the past, and most of the cities do that now, so that you're not bombarded by all of these auditors wanting to take you out to lunch and dinner and all those types of things, so that you're not in an awkward situation.
And on the reverse, Kurt, so we would not be able to reach out to them as well.
Correct. Yeah, it works both ways. It keeps the process really clean and transparent. There can be just so you're aware, with that clause, if they do contact you at the next meeting, you would need to tell us, and then they would be disqualified from the process. Just to get that out before we issue this, because I plan on issuing this tomorrow with your approval tonight.
Is there a bidders list?
There is not right now. We use Demand Star, but I've already been called by, I believe it is 3 different firms. They track when your contracts expire. Once a year, I get a call from all of them, and most of them know to watch our online bid service to get that.
So it won't be sent to any,
Well, the way that service works, most of them have signed up for that service. And when I issue the RFP through the online system, you assign the standard, I believe it's called the Standard Industrial Classification Code, even though this isn't industrial, but there's an accounting, auditing, and I can pick as many as I want. I pick anything related, accounting, auditing, financial services, anything, so that any firm that does anything remotely close to this will get an email. Then they get contacted automatically by the system. And all the major players are aware of this system. It's used by a ton of cities, and they're aware, and we'll get notified as soon as I hit, publish it. When I hit the publish button, the emails go out immediately.
you get notified as to who gets the emails?
I don't get notified, but you can go, in the system, I forget what they call it. There's a distribution list, and then I can also see who's downloaded the RFP from the website. And that's called the plan holder list. So as we go through it, I can see who's downloaded it, and I can also get an idea of how many responses to expect.
Kurt, I want to go through a little bit of a timeline again. So you're going to put this out tomorrow. When do you anticipate? So then they have to have it in on the 30th. So are you going to say by August 1st, August 2nd, we will have packs in our hand?
Actually, on that day, they are to give us an electronic copy.
Okay.
So they all go to Sherry, and we'll open the hard copies because they're supposed to give us one original, and I think it's 7 hard copies and 1 jump drive with an electronic copy. So that day, what we can do, and we will do, is we'll just assemble into one email to all of you, all of those files, so you'll get 7 to 10 files to look at. We'll also take hard copies, put them in your boxes if you want the hard copies rather than electronic. So you'll have them both ways, but that on the 30th, you'll have that emailed to you, and we usually do those right up in the conference room, so we'll walk across the lobby area and put them in your box on the 30th, so you'll have them that day.
And then so we'll have from the 30th to the 10th to review.
Correct.
Are there any other questions for Kurt or Becky on this?
Could you just repeat the dates and time?
Okay,
So
so
it's in you have your pack?
Yeah.
yeah, it's on page 145 of the packet.
Okay,
So,
that's fine.
one thing that doesn't show here, but it's in another part, is we do have a question period for them. I believe we said they have to have all questions to us by July 15th, and then I'll issue either an addendum or just answer. I usually do the frequently asked questions. Just put a list together. Here's the question, here's the city's response, and then I issue it online as well, and then it goes to all the people that downloaded the plans. That's how I know they get it all. So they can't, after the fact, say, hey, I didn't get it. And then they return it in 15 days later on the 3rd.
And to review on August 10th, we'll have a workshop beginning at 5 p.m. on August 24th at 4 p.m.
Correct.
Yes, and then you will recommend to yourselves during the regular meeting to select one of those three.
Yeah.
It's almost identical to how we got.
Yes.
Exactly, yes.
It's good. That worked very well.
That was a good process. Okay, any other steps that we do, need a motion or anything on this, Becky, or what, do I have to recess this and go back?
You do need to recess this, or actually, this would be adjourned.
This would be
I
adjourned.
do need a motion from the committee to approve the RFP for issuance.
You got to adjourn first, though.
Nope.
No, not yet.
It's
Still in
has to be the committee.
I move to accept the proposed RFP.
Perfect.
For the auditor selection.
Second.
Okay, any questions? Not Sherry, can you take a vote?
Councilmember Politis?
I'm staff member Politis.
Committee member.
And I would say yes as staff committee member.
Committee member.
Committee member.
Committee member Frislow?
Yes. Good catch, Michael.
Lindauer?
Yes.
Committee member Bryan?
Yes.
Committee member Miller?
Yes, thank you. All right, so this committee of the auditor selection will now be adjourned.
And now you need to open.
I'm going to open back up on the regularly scheduled city council meeting of June 22nd. Our next item is, we have good news. Things are just busting out at the seams in the shores, but we have a lease subsidy grant application for Salty Pint LLC. And we have and this is another dual hat person, so tonight we have our economic development manager, Nancy Maddox, here to talk to us about this.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. I am excited to present applicant Salty Pint LLC. They just submitted their economic development grant on June 9th, and they're requesting a new business lease subsidy grant totaling the amount of $9,540.70. Mr. Fairbanks is here, one of the owners, and they're scheduled to be open on July 2nd. Very excited, and it's going to be an outstanding pub that will serve specialty sandwiches, wine, and beer, and their goal is to provide high-quality food and beverage with impeccable service and a fun, unique atmosphere. They will be open 7 days a week from 11 a.m., so no breakfast, until 11 p.m. So,
I'm sorry, did you say beer and wine?
Yes.
And I'm sorry, I hit the name, what was his?
Mr. Fairbanks? John Fairbanks.
Hi, Mr. Fairbanks. Welcome. You want to come up and tell us a little bit about your business?
Sure.
Do I understand you have a location somewhere else, Mr. Fairbanks?
My partner does. So, you're familiar with The Grind?
Can you, I don't know if he needs. Yes, okay.
The Grind, and, yeah, so that's my business partner. And this is where, do you remember what used to be there? The
Fest House?
Yeah, the Fest House.
Okay, so that's, Glenn's one of my friends, so he's given me some of his sandwiches to do, and it was a great local hangout, and we loved going there. We totally remodeled the whole place. There's nothing left in there that was original from the last restaurant, so it's going to be, you know, family oriented because I got kids, so I'm really looking forward to getting that camaraderie back from the locals. It's been a long time since I've seen them, and I'm getting all these calls all the time. Hey, when you open this up? Sooner than later.
What kind of sandwiches are you going to have?
Specialty. We're trying not to do too many subs. But we do have that window, and we are going to be a sandwich shop first, and a bar second.
Okay.
We're really focusing on getting the sandwiches out there. So hopefully we're open on the 2nd, and I hope to see you guys there.
Very cool.
It'd be nice.
Sure.
Very good. Very good.
Great, absolutely.
Next to Winn-Dixie, the old Fest House.
Greater Fitness, Winn-Dixie, Post Office, and that little strip plaza, correct?
Salty.
All right.
Beer and a sandwich sounds good.
John, I wanted to bring something up. When I asked you, or when I asked the question, and when we met, whether you created a fire hazard because of the alcohol, I thought you were a craft brewery initially, and that's why I brought that up. I wanted to mention that. I'm not totally crazy. I just had the wrong idea of what you were doing. So.
Well, good, welcome. Looking forward to it. So any other questions for either Nancy or Mr. Fairbanks? If not, do I hear a motion to approve the subject grant application as agreed?
I so move.
Second.
Okay, any other questions? And Nancy, I know you want to talk about something else, so if no other discussion, Sherry, can you take a roll, please?
Councilmember Colitis?
Yes.
Councilmember Frislow?
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Linda?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes, thank you. And I think you have some other exciting news for us?
Yes, Mayor, I just want to let you know first, Millie's was voted number 8 in America according to Yelp for their seafood to table.
Wow, fantastic. Very cool. Wow, that is great. Wow.
That's amazing. And
Wow.
exciting news.
That is huge.
because, they purchased and closed on Pirates Cove. So they'll be adding another restaurant there. And then they also purchased DJ's Deck. So
We wish it
we're
was
really
in
excited.
the
Yeah.
shores, just 1 inch out. We're gonna have Stuart do something about it.
We're gonna annex it over. Annex that over.
He knows somebody that works for Port Orange Planning. I'm sure he can work it out.
Yeah, they can change their comprehensive plan so that we have that property. But yeah, I wanted to let you all know that.
Thank you, we appreciate
That's
that.
fantastic.
Okay. For all the tops, all right, we're going to go on to the end topic right now, and I think we talked enough about this, about the truck event. So what I'm asking for tonight, we currently have an ordinance, 2020-08, that we had talked about previously that prohibits any of us from going out representing Daytona Beach Shores when we're talking to anyone without prior approval of the council. So I'm coming to you this evening to ask you for approval, not only to talk about it on this task force, but if there's any opportunity that comes up for me to represent Daytona Beach Shores, talking about and our feelings and how it's affected the shores, this truck event. So that's what I'm asking for. Becky, do I need a vote or consensus, or what do I need?
I think it would be a good idea to take a vote because of the existence of the ordinance.
I move to authorize Mayor Miller to do as such, to act as an advocate for the shores in these task force situations and any other things that come forward.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or any questions?
Is this task force limited to the truck?
No, we probably, I know when they talked about before, they talked about all special events, because as Michael Fowler had said before, and Billy, I mean, we had that Orlando invades Daytona that not to the same degree, but caused a lot of havoc. I don't think it fell over too much into the shores, but not saying so. So I think the main focus will be the truck events, but it could be anything. Special
It
events.
would be limited to special events.
Yeah, it would be limited to special events.
But all special events.
All special events, yes. Any other questions? Okay, Sherry, can you take a vote on that, please?
Councilmember Pelaez?
Yes.
Councilmember Frislow?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lindauer?
Yes.
Councilmember Bryan?
Yes.
Mayor Miller?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for approving that, I appreciate it.
Thank you
Okay.
very much for taking the lead on it.
Thank you. Okay, so next we'll go on to council comments. Councilman Bryan, do you have anything for us?
No.
All right, Vice Mayor?
No, I said earlier, and again, I'll say it again, I just applaud our police department for all the great work they did under really, really trying circumstances during like truck event, whatever it was called.
That's it? Okay, thank you. I don't really have any other comments except as a reminder, we are going to have the outside concert June 25th, and we're going to have the food trucks begins at 5 p.m.
The food trucks will start at 4:30.
Food trucks will be there at 4:30, and the concert will start at 5:30.
Do we have beer?
Yes.
All right.
Wow, okay.
Salty pint.
Salty pint, there you go, there you go.
And we will not have another council meeting before my next coffee with the mayor. Remember, July 13th? No council meeting. I know Councilman Frizzolone's going to show up.
Absolutely.
Yes,
I'll be
but
right
no
there.
council meeting on
the
July
salty pint.
13th, but on the 14th. And I am going to have Chief Dubinsky there. The main purpose will be for him to talk about the vials of life, if you know what that is. And then I'm sure we're going to get more truck questions. But thank you very much for being our guest speaker.
And if somebody's in line for the Philly cheesesteaks, would you save me a place?
Councilman Frizzolone?
Just two things real quick. It was a terrible night tonight. It was raining. There was a little bit of thunder as we made our way here. And I just can't thank you all enough for coming and spending time here. And you guys make a difference, and it makes it so much better for us. And for anybody who has checked in, thank you very much for listening in. And I want to take the time to really thank the mayor for the leadership role she's taken on the special events and trying to help bring law and order and some stability to the shores. I think it's terrific what you're doing.
Thank you. Councilman Politis?
Just to, of course, to thank again law enforcement and all other city staff that worked really hard over that horrible 3, 4, 5 days. And secondly, the city attorney, I love the synopsis of all the House bills. That was really good, informative. Got to know a little bit of what's on the table and what's coming up. So thank you for that little extra tidbit.
Oh, you're welcome.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. I do not have any forms for any audience comments. Is there anyone that wanted to speak that didn't fill out a form? Okay, if not, then what items do we have for the next agenda? That will be July, that will be the budget work.
Yes, so I was.
If you'd like to talk about that.
On the 27th, because we're canceling the meeting on the 13th, on the 27th, we'll be having a budget workshop at 4 o'clock. And then at the 6 o'clock meeting, you'll be adopting a proposed millage rate. I don't have a recommendation tonight on that. I'm still putting budget stuff together. So, but we'll have that, and I will try to have that proposed budget to you well in advance of that meeting, so you can have time to review it and be ready for the 4 o'clock workshop.
That's at 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
Is that really a year already since we
amazing.
had that last?
Yes.
Scary. That's scary.
All right, okay. So that will be the main, so that's at 4 o'clock and regular meeting at 6.
Yes.
Okay, any other items for next meeting?